Mr. Smith's not here?
Wasn't planning on it, I don't think.
What a life.
I will have to direct staff to give some reports so that he has to come to the next committee of the whole. Tick tock, tick tock. Any second now. We have arrived at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, February 22nd, and welcome staff, welcome council members, and welcome any members of the public who may be viewing tonight on the Town of Lake Couch and YouTube channel for this regular council meeting that is being held electronically and transmitted via council chambers located at 39 South Shore Road. With your indulgence tonight, I was watching other meetings in other municipalities and I came across our neighboring municipality, Duncan, and Mayor Staples has an opening commentary, and I asked if I could borrow it this evening, just make a couple edits. Don't know if I'm going to use it all the time, but it kind of spoke to me, so I thought I'd share with you because it might say something to you as well. So I would like to begin tonight by acknowledging that we are gathering on the traditional unceded territory of the Subasit people of the lake. I would like to acknowledge that in the rooms we gather from, there are different views, different ways of expressing ourselves, different levels of intensity, and different roads to learning. May we combine clarity of mind with kindness of heart, and may we be impartial without bending to strong personalities. May we sacrifice self-interest for the good of the whole, and may we do our work with love and clarity of vision for the benefit of those we serve. So thank you very much for hearing that out. I just thought I had a couple nice bits in there that would be helpful, especially during COVID, when we're all meeting in different places. So with that, I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask for any introduction of late items from staff. Councillor Bomaka.
Sorry, I think it's an introduction of a late item. Under new business, can we have a absence of myself from the March 8th meeting?
Okay, thank you. Staff, anything? Any members of council? Councillor Sandhu and Councillor Austin?
Just a quick verbal report on the town hall renovation. Just an update.
Okay. And Councillor Austin, did you have something too?
Just an addition after the mayor's report, just something about the Variety Show of Hearts telethon. I know we aren't doing those kinds of things anymore, but I thought because of a close connection to our town, I might just mention that, if that's okay, after your mayor's report.
Sure.
Would that work?
There's always some dead air just after that, so perhaps you could finish it off. Take it home. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I do have one, and it's a meeting format going forward, where we're going to meet, how we're going to meet, and I'd just like to hear your thoughts on what that would look like, given the town hall situation and things like the fire hall being an option. So anyways, we'll talk about that, if I can add that to the meeting as well. Okay, So with that, I'd like to call for approval of the agenda as amended. Moved by Councilor O'Maka, second by Councilor Sandu. All those in favor? Opposed? None. Motion carried. Thank you. Then we have the adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on January 25th, 2022. Moved by Councilor Sandu, seconded by Councilor, I think I seen McGonagall's one finger go up. So that's seconded by Councilor McGonagall. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. No business arising in unfinished business, no delegations, and no correspondence, and no information action, correspondence action items or information consent. Then we can move straight to reports. And today I'm going to ask Councillor Austin to do the two committee of the whole reports that I chaired. The first one being committee of the whole January 24th, 2022. Councillor Austin, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to move the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held on January 24th as presented. I
Thank
didn't see
you.
any motions in there.
I'll just have a quick look just in case. Well, it's there's one. I'll read it, and
Okay.
that the committee approve a leave of absence for Councilor
Oh, that one,
for the meeting held this day. All right, so that is the only recommendation. So seconder, Councilor Sandu, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And the next one, Councilor Austin, committee of the whole, February 1st, 2022.
Okay, thank you again. I'd like to move the minutes of the February 1st committee of the whole meeting with the following recommendations: that the committee recommend approval of the sewer utility fund financial plan for 22 to 26 as presented in option 2. That the committee recommend approval of the water utility fund financial plan for 22 to 26 as presented. And that the committee table the matter of providing financial support to the Lake Cowichan Fire Department for its restoration of engine number 1 to June 2022. That the committee recommend approval of the general fund financial plan for 2022 as presented, reflecting a 4.5 municipal tax increase. That the committee recommend approval of the general fund financial plan for 2022 to 2026 as presented. And I believe that's it.
All right, a seconder. Second by Councilor Sandu. Any discussion on those minutes? Recommendations? None. I'll call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? None. Motion carried. Thank you. Then we can move along to Council McGonigal, the committee of the whole, February 8th, 2022, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will move the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held electronically on February 28th. That's a Tuesday, with the following recommendations. That the committee recommend that the town of Lake Cowichan approve in principle the Cowichan Lake Arts and Culture Society's art bombing event to be held April 9th to 18th, 2022. Also, moving along, the committee recommend approval of the Lake Cowichan Fire Department incident report in the amount of $10,031.17 for December 2021. The committee recommend that council endorse the updated 2022 water conservation plan to ensure that its water resources are always used in an environmentally sustainable manner that should result in reductions in liquid waste and the use of energy. Also, that the committee recommend that council approve the water utility leaks policy as presented. Committee recommend that council enter into a further 5-year agreement with the community garden effective May 1st, 2022, and that council approve a leave of absence for Councillor Sandu for that particular meeting, I believe. And with those, I'll move those.
All right, that was a busy meeting. Seconded by Councillor Austin. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Next, we can go to the Couch and Lake Recreation Commission. I searched for some minutes on the CVRD website, didn't find any, but I do have a report. It was a very light agenda. The elections were held that evening. The returning chair is Tor Repstock, as well as returning vice chair Michelle Weir, and one new member from Area I, as there was a resignation from that area, and it's Joelle Ballon-J. And that was it for that meeting, besides the just general reports from, one more. I don't have a specific date, but Ms. Blatchford announced that her last day will be in June. And so I'll inform you what the actual dates are so that possibly we can send some well wishes her way via a card or something on her happy retirement, but it's a little early to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. 35 years, I believe she's been on the job with CVRD. So nice career there. Okay, also, I had a question earlier this week from Councillor Sandhu regarding some previous minutes. And that was December's meeting, and that was around the discussion and the budgeting for the building envelope, a project that was scheduled to happen during the arena renovation back when that was done, and has been put off since then. Started off as a $400,000 project back then when the arena was originally renovated, taken out of the project, and ever since then it's been put off to the point where in the meeting it was discussed and had pictures of it's a metal cladding on the outside, and in many places around the building up to a foot to a foot and a half, it's rusted away, and it's now affecting the interior structure of the walls on portions of the building. So that's why the project has to take place. It's going to move forward. And correct me, Councillor Sandhu, because you just read them freshly, that the project is going to be 2023, 2024. I believe they're going to spread it over 2 years and use capital reserves and short-term financing to fund that. It's a little difficult to say how that's going to affect the tax requisition, but we were informed by the finance department that there's other short-term debt that's retiring, so this one will just take its place. So,
And I believe that this discussion approval or whatnot happens at the CVRD meeting tomorrow.
Yeah.
For the discussion, so of the options. Was a recommendation from the commission on which option? Because I didn't really.
I think it was a hybrid between option 1 and 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, quite a lengthy discussion anyways, and got into the color scheme and everything, but finally we got out of that conversation. Just let's get her done.
Okay. Thank you.
In as timely manner as possible. Okay. Any other questions on that meeting, Councilor McGonigal?
Just a comment, if I may. I think it shows the impacts of price increases if you do wait on a project. We've experienced that with delays in various projects, from 400,000 to almost a triple to 1.2 million is significant. And I know supply issues have come into play within that, but to think of short-term borrowing at the time of the renovation would have been probably the best option. Would have been paid off by now, but hindsight is 20/20, so to say. So I think moving forward, it'll be an interesting discussion, considering the impacts of the assessment allocations, which we recently discussed at an online budget meeting, and how those have been reallocated between managed forest lands who are not paying the portion within that function now, and it has resided within the residential impact. So it'll be an interesting discussion. And unfortunately, I'm not available. I have another commitment. So Councillor Sandhu gets to discuss this tomorrow.
Yeah, when I was speaking with Councillor Sandhu earlier this week on this topic too, Councillor McGonigal I spoke about the time that you were absent during the final budget discussions a few years back. I just sort of chuckled and said, okay, well, this is your baptism by fire. Yeah. Anyways, it's a good learning curve, and it's I'm sure, as always, there'll be passion around the table when it comes to final budget.
But we are in good hands. Councillor Sandu does watch diligently during those discussions and know certainly the discussions that have occurred in the past.
Yeah, for sure. Did you hear that, Councillor Sandu? You are prepared. You got this. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, we can move along to the Vancouver Island Regional Library now. Councillor Gomaka.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I don't have the stamina of Councillor Sandu or Councillor McGonigal, but the annual general meeting of the Vancouver Island Library Board was on January 29th. I couldn't do the whole 3-hour meeting from home on my tablet, so I apologize. Gabby Wickstrom has been re-elected, though, as a board chair for her second year now. I believe, no, sorry, she was 2 years. Now she'll be the executive from 2012 to 2014. Or no, boy, I'm losing her today. She used to be, but she is now our board chair. And the Erin Hemmons, councillor for the city of Nanaimo, was elected as the vice chair. And we also have 4 new board trustees on this year. When we were talking earlier about supply chain issues, the Souk Library Board was set to open in the spring, but because of supply chain issues, it's uncertain now when the exact date can be pinpointed. So this is affecting a lot of places. And I did have one that popped up today from the library, which really surprised me, being the current events across Canada right now. But it is Freedom to Read Week from February the 20th to the 22nd is an annual event to remind and encourage Canadians to think about intellectual freedom. It is guaranteed under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but it needs constant commitment from everyone to uphold it. Even in Canada, books and magazines are challenged and banned in institutions and at the border. Schools and libraries are regularly asked to remove books and magazines from their shelves. I thought that was quite interesting. Meeting rooms are available, and in-branch programming will now resume March the 1st of 2022, but masks are still mandatory and proof of vaccines are only for indoor programming. No proof of vaccine required now for customers accessing library spaces. And that is all for now.
Thank you, Councillor Gomaka. Okay, we can move along next to the Advisory Planning Commission. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Advisory Planning Commission meeting, the last one was January 27th. Our next one is this coming Thursday. We received a memo from our town planner, followed by a discussion on the climate change targets, mitigation and adaptation. I won't read all the minutes to you, just my little shorthand version. He talked about the measures and things that we have done so far. We had a discussion regarding the WEIR in the previous presentation from the CVRD on mitigation or adaptation, again, of climate. And perhaps they talked about acquiring volunteers from VIU to gather some data for the summer students, maybe. Correspondence was from Minister Rob Fleming regarding speed limits. The members reviewed that and felt that our speed limits in town were fine. And of course, you know, we don't handle South Shore Road, but the rest of the roads, they seem that the speed limits are fine as they are. We also received a memo on parks and greenways. Members identified some like landscaping for Kasapi Park maybe should be a priority. I don't think it's in our budget this year, but it's one of the priorities. And we have talked for years about access ramps into the water at the Duck Pond and at Lakeview for people with challenges. And I really think that's a great idea if there's anything we can do with that this year. And also picnic tables at those places with the longer open ends so that a wheelchair or a walker could sit at the end, like they do in restaurants for dining tables. And we also talked about the adopt a park concept. One of our members worked on adopt a park in Edmonton at one time, where local residents will adopt a park and help do some work on it. I don't know if that's possible here with our staff and that, but it's something to talk about. And I did take our new APC member on a parks tour on Sunday, February 6th. We drove all around the whole area and I showed her all the different areas, including, you know, our boat launch and all the different areas like that. So she was aware of what we had. So it's quite a good discussion. The meeting this Thursday will be another one on climate change and the 200-year floodplain, and development approvals and approvals process review. So we have another full meeting this coming Thursday.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for Councillor Austin? Okay, then we can move along to the Community Forest Co-op. Councilman McGonigal.
Nothing specific to report. We're still looking at some applications that came for some funds from the Kinsman for the duck pond and from Couch and Lake Elder Care Society. Those decisions have not been finalized yet. They're still within the purview of the committee, and moving forward, I will report when those have been finalized. Other than that, there has been some logging occurring within the second growth portion. As you're quite aware, the old growth is still quite a contentious topic, and they have decided to forego any harvesting of old growth at this time, because it does reside within some of the old growth that has been deferred. I think looking forward, they are looking to move into that, pending some clarification from the Ministry of Forests, etc., on those deferrals. Pachudat and the Kalayat both suggest that that is a harvest area that should be looked at within their long-term forest sustainability plan, and we will see where that goes from there.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Councilor McGonigal? Okay. Then we can move on to other reports. Cowichan Valley Regional District Board Meeting. Councilor McGonigal.
Bear with me as I bring that up in my notes. Technology is great when it works. As this loads, as I've noted earlier, I am absent tomorrow on another commitment for the Cowichan Valley Regional District. And in my absence, Councillor Sandu will be attending not only tomorrow's meeting, but there's also Committee of the Whole meeting that day and a special board meeting on Thursday, which she will be attending. So she will need some stamina, Councillor Omaka. This was the regular board of February 9th. There was some correspondence from the Vice Chair of the Comox Valley Regional District looking for an updated Vancouver Island Transportation Plan from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, looking for also a sign-on from the Cowichan Valley Regional District, the other CVRD, on the possibility of implementing an updated Vancouver Island Transportation Plan. From the Committee of the Whole on January 26th, there was a memorandum of understanding between the Cowichan Valley Regional District and the Regional District of Nanaimo for transit operation of 5 years. That's the service that goes from CVRD transit up to the Nanaimo transit, with connections for the airport and various locations north. Also, that staff report regarding fireworks discharge permits be referred back to staff for further review. There was discussion on whether or not fireworks can be totally banned within the area. And when we don't have the jurisdiction over many of the properties within the regional district where these sales are taking place, whether they be on First Nations lands, etc., it was wondered if we even have the authority to do that. There was some talk about perhaps moving to the province to ban fireworks, and that was a lengthy and contentious discussion. Next, there was electoral area services that came forward, and again, those do not, land ones do not pertain to municipal directors to contribute to, but there was considerable discussion in that. Also, looking at South Cowichan again for the province to look at a review on governance, whether or not they can move forward with implementing a similar regional municipality, a district municipality as in North Cowichan. When you consider that Shawnigan Lake has almost 3 times the population of the town of Lake Cowichan and is governed by 1 electoral area director, and we are governed by 5 elected people, it just makes you wonder whether or not that entity of CVRD regional districts has maybe come to a time when there should be a hybrid model. 89,000 people within Cowichan Valley Regional District. Perhaps it's time to look at district municipalities as a part to hybrid that portion. And there was also discussion on the budget items, which will be again discussed tomorrow and further on Thursday and possibly Friday if that discussion does not finalize. And with that, there's my report.
Thank you very much, Councilor McGonigal. Any questions from anybody? Okay. And that means we can move along to the Community Outreach Team Committee. Councillor Austin.
Thank you. It's quite a lengthy one tonight, but I'd like to read most of it because it does relate to all of us in this community. We had a really good meeting on February 17th. Jocelyn, the new executive director, discussed a few items. One of them is Frank Hornbrook will again be doing his income tax filing for people, seniors and low income people. And you can call the community services to find out the times and what kinds of ideas you need to have for that. Excuse me. Return of the fun bus. They are currently in the process of finalizing program details again after this. They had a large amount of requests flooding in to book the vehicle. It seats 15. I'd kind of forgotten about their bus that they have other than the one they used to have. Cameron Brown, the community navigator, talked about the soup kitchen. There's an increased use of the program, anywhere from 8 to, they've had up to 11 or 12 people coming. I did pop in last Thursday and just to see how it was going. The food is made in their commercial kitchen and then taken over to the church on Mondays and Thursdays at noon. Laundry Day, they're offering financial assistance and support to help provide access to laundry and shower services. It wasn't terribly well used the first time, but it's getting better. They had about 6 spots available and they timed them. They're booked at different times. Amanda Sawatsky, one of the counselors, said that they're accepting resumes for another child and family counselor. The youth programs are on hold and the lunch bunch is on hold right now due to COVID restrictions. And caseloads are inundated with requests for support. They're trying to accommodate the need with a growing community. I'll talk about me afterwards. Kimberly Ayer, she's one of our health nurses that comes with the COAT team. They're now coming on Tuesdays and they do outreach, COVID injections and assessments of the people that are marginalized within the community. And they're quite busy. They come up every Tuesday, as I said, and they help with basic needs. I've got pages on here, this is crazy. Laurel Crawford is with the Ministry of Housing. She's continuing to reach out to anyone that needs additional help. She's pretty well overworked, and it's very hard because there's no rentals in this area for people. She's trying to bridge the gap between some of BC's most vulnerable people and the support services. Sergeant Watson introduced Corporal Shannon Savinkoff, who previously worked in Langley. She is an outreach officer. She's hoping to build stronger connections and engage with community services and other local providers throughout the year. Sergeant Watson talked about the changes in weather, that we will be expecting an increase in transient population again with the good weather, and also tourism, so bringing more people into the community. And they're doing their best to keep up with the needs of the community themselves. The 50+ Activity Center is opening. They've been open the odd Friday, but now they're going to open next week on Monday, and I think they'll be open every day. Alethea Clark, who's with Work BC, said there's a lot of higher traffic, people looking for support to find work, and there's still the BC income program. And Kyle LaBerge, our new CVRD coordinator, talked about summer programming, some of the programs that are going now, and different ideas about things that are coming up. They've had a few things canceled, but I think things will be opening up. I think they've got weddings and some birthdays ready to book in the spring and the fall. And we still have COVID regulations, but I teach a class on Wednesdays, and you just have to have had your 3 vaccinations, wear a mask coming in, do the hand sanitizing, and then take your mask off if you wish, or leave it on. And it seems to be working quite well. And I think there's 16 to 18 in my group right now. So it's a very good organization. And the next meeting will be on March 17th at 9 a.m. I think I got everything, 4 pages. That wasn't me, that's Alethea. She does great work. Great work.
Thanks, Councillor Austin. Those are very thorough minutes. All right. So now we can go to Councillor Sandhu for our Cowichan.
Thank you. So our next meeting is April 14th, 2022.
Okay. In person?
To be
Maybe.
determined.
To be determined. Okay. Okay. Thank you. And now we can move to the Cowichan Watershed Board, Councillor Sandhu again.
Thank you. We had our meeting on January 31st, and what we were given a process backgrounder regarding the Cowichan conservation license for the Weir, and there are goals, process goals and objectives, and a process status. And Compass Project Management has been retained by Cowichan tribes to facilitate the scoping process. And basically it's a conversation, roundtable conversation with all parties, CVRD, Cowichan tribes, Paper Excellence, the Cowichan Watershed Board, and the provincial government. And it's to identify whether and how interests structure define a common set of evaluation criteria. License ownership decisions will be driven by each party's strategic mandate and priorities. Representatives had difficulty articulating their party's interest, priorities, or key considerations, and saw a need for leadership direction. Without clear direction, representatives were concerned that a consensus-based recommendation at the technical level could fail to earn necessary later support, and that the Weir construction would be delayed. For this process to be confident and efficiently proceed, strategic direction is necessary from each of the parties on the following 3 questions. So, what are your desired roles, if any, in the Weir license ownership arrangement? Question 2, how willing are you, if at all, to assume responsibilities, liability, cost associated with the licensee and ownership? And what are your reasons for 1 and 2? And what would it take to enable your organization to have a role in the Weir license ownership? So, so they weren't asking the Watershed Board to define a bottom line position, because the Watershed Board is not in the position in any way to hold the license. But it is becoming the timeline is becoming shorter and shorter in these discussions with these other bodies. And so they're recognizing that the Cowichan Tribes election is this Friday, and that the provincial ministries reorganizations is likely February and March. So Cowichan Tribes work to engage with Cowichan Nation and Sabatsas First Nation. The deadline for the parties to provide responses to these 3 questions is April 15th, 2022. So this is one of the most important issues with the building of the new weir, is the licensee holder and what comes with that. I think there's just not enough communication from the province as to funds and overall understanding of the process and what would entail if one of these bodies took on this role and liability with the weir. So there is a lot to still discuss, and I will keep you updated. And I have a Cowichan Watershed Board Society meeting Thursday morning at 9 a.m. So I'll report on that at the next meeting. And my next Watershed Board meeting is February 28th.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sandhu. And I thought the technical side of things was difficult. Sounds like this is going to be just as much of a task as to move past this and finally make a decision.
Yes.
Interesting stuff. You captured it well. All right. Any questions for Councillor Sandhu? Okay, thank you, Councillor Sandhu. Next, we move to the next item, which is the memo. You have it before you. I hope you've all had a chance to read it. Yes, I did write it. Staff has not been that engaged in the conversation so far, to no fault of their own. They have been busy with other things, and this is not something that we as the Town of Lake Cowichan Council are going to take on in our budget anyways. So I've tried to capture everything from the meetings we've held so far and from everything I do know. And for those that weren't able to attend on February 10th, they are holding 6 sleeping cabins, and they're in disassembled mode and 1 washroom unit at the manufacturer's facility in Cobble Hill. So I'm not going to go through it line by line here, but except when we get down to the recommendations, I really didn't know how to capture the way forward, because hey, this is my first time through this kind of an issue. But basically, I tried to put out 2 reasonable recommendations. But you know what? If we're going to discuss this tonight, and we should be letting them know whether or not we're going to move forward in any way, shape, or form. I did ask the question at that meeting, can these units be used somewhere else? And they said yes. So they're not going to go to waste if we decide that the community cannot move to the next step. But so basically, I'm not going to say I'm not in love, but I'm not hell-bent on any of the suggestions within the recommendations. So if we want to have discussion, please feel free to suggest amendments if you want, or a hybrid of the 2 recommendations, or whatever you feel is necessary. So I'll just open it up to the floor now. Councillor Sandhu.
Thank you. I was in attendance at that meeting, and I was a little discouraged. I felt the conversation is just that. It's just a conversation. There's no kind of movement. And one thing I was a little irritated with was the assumption of, do we have political will up here to move forward with this project? And I heard that a few times at that meeting. And we all have the political will. That's why we're here. But I was a little taken aback by that comment, and that's where I'll leave it. The 2 biggest things for me to move forward with this project is property to house these pods and the financial means to be able to bring services to that project. And in the the March 16th, 2021 Couch and Housing Association draft we received, they were clear that you need to provide incremental services, including food and water, bathroom facilities, cleaning and waste management, harm reduction, security, fire safety, and outreach support to clients, to resources and support programs. So the question is, where do the funds come to provide these services? Because the town of Lake Cowichan, we are not in the position to fund this project in any shape or form. We don't have it in our budget, and there's a lot of unknowns. And I really believe this belongs higher up with Island Health and higher. And that we could do work on our end to try and, what you had suggested, possibly putting a task force together. But I think it needs to be a whole new task force. I think we've got to get the heavyweights in there that actually can allocate funds to the services that are going to be required, whether it's 1 or it's 6 people. We have to have the services there, but we need the funds to be able to have the services brought there. So at this point, I don't know how to move forward with this other than we need the financial support to move forward.
Good comments. Thank you. Councilman McGonigal, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And like all other small municipalities or all other local governments, we feel that senior levels of governments have dropped the ball on this issue and affordable housing. So as community members and neighbors, we feel obligated to take this on. Voluntary downloading of responsibilities of senior levels of government. The capacity within the town of Lake Cowichan to provide the complex services that are required for some individuals who are marginally housed, whether it be mental health or addictions, has to be foremost and front before any implementation of sleeping pods, in my opinion. We are not, I repeat, we are not mental health and addictions counselors. That is not our role. We can look for opportunities to find that fund to move forward. We have mentioned on previous meetings that is where the portion from UBCM should be allocated. From allocating mental health and addictions counseling, which is currently 9 hours a week, somehow to implement an increase within that, and not downloading on a community service that has not got the capacity for that. When I look at other municipalities such as Victoria or Vancouver, who also embraced a voluntary download, whether it be Beacon Hill Park or Oppenheimer Park, without the support of services, you can see the devastation within communities. And people are going to tell me I'm a heartless ogre. I am not a heartless ogre. I am a realist. That we as a small community, without those supportive services, are not lifting up, we are enabling. The services surrounding the problems has to be foremost and upfront. I do like the suggestion of a task force, but I do not suggest that any political person sit on that. We leave that to the organizations, social planning or other organizations, whether it be church groups who have worked with these in the various communities, to implement that, to get the funding. We can look at the zoning, we can look at the policies. We should not be politically involved. We do have the political will, but we don't have the political means.
Good statements, Councilman McGonigal. I've written down a couple of notes there. What I'm trying to do is take notes from comments and see if there's any way to move forward rather than just say no. And I felt the same way when I wrote this. That the task force just sort of rang in my head. It doesn't matter who was on it to me, but and there's a couple of people that are missed in those notes too. I noticed after I read it 17 times. So thank you for those comments. And Councillor Austin, you're next.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I've been on a few of these meetings, and one of the meeting, I think the last one, I had a bit of trouble with my Zoom, but I believe that both the nurse practitioner and the sergeant said there were only 2 to 4 actual homeless here that are from here. 2 that I know of, 2. And we've been talking about this for a long time. We need the land, you need and we do have the political will. I found that very off-putting when it was mentioned as if we didn't have any political will, when obviously we care about these people, because we all are out there making sure we give them gift certificates or whatever, or help with the food banks or whatever. So when we signed that original agreement, it said temporary shelters, and it had all the incremental services. And I think the most that we talked about at the time was the incremental services, more so than the sleeping pods. And these are just sleeping pods. They're not homes. These people need a home. And they're one of the people in this community, we all know, I won't mention names because I shouldn't, but this person is not homeable or houseable. When this person gets a house, they're removed from it within a day or 2. And it's happened many times over the last couple of years. So the mental health services are the most important, and that's through the Ministry of Health. I was going to say go with option 2 at this point for now, myself, and just say at this time, we're not ready for this. If you want then afterwards to do a task force, to try and get a task force together, and I agree with Councillor McGonigal, there should not be any politicians on that. I think some of this in other areas is politically driven and trying to make other people feel guilty for things. I don't like that. You know, we don't have the land. As you had said at one of our meetings, I think it was a poverty reduction. Let someone come up with a piece of land and we'll see if we can rezone it and all that, but we'd have to have a public hearing. And we know, and I know the chap, I forgot his name, John Horn, when he first talked about this, I mentioned that if you bring in 8, more people will come, and they know that's happened in every community in British Columbia, probably throughout North America. Nanaimo has more homeless people per capita than anywhere else in BC right now. The nice climate. Duncan is bad. They're getting more people all the time. Some of those do not want to be in homes. And Victoria, Lisa Help said just a couple of weeks ago that they've got 80 unhoused right now. And several of those are people that really don't want to be in homes. They like being free. They're like the old hippies of the 60s. If any of you were born back then, I think some of you are. I think some of you were born back then. And you know, they like to live free and live in a commune, and that would be wonderful. But I really think at this time for me, it would be option 2, in a nice way to say we're just not prepared. But if you want to go with a task force and see if someone else will organize it with the Ministry of Health and have the right people there, because we don't want to put this all onto community services. They're doing a huge amount right now with everything that they do in this community, and Island Health is doing a little bit, and the food bank. So I just think that's where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Vomaka.
Thank you. When I was looking at this today, and then I looked at the village project, and when you start to look at, you know, the applications through BC Housing that they asked for, they're talking about fencing, security fencing, smoke detectors, site leadership on call 24/7. There's a lot to this that's going on for all the other units. For us to have only 4 or 6 units, we can't provide any of that. And as much as, you know, it would be great to have these little pods here, I know our staff to begin with through Public Works cannot manage looking after those in the washroom facilities. Community services, like Councillor Austin had said, they don't even have time to do what they need to do. So I think I'm caught, because as much as it would be nice to put these pods here to give them shelter, we don't have the wraparound services to go with this. So I would have, and you know, to go to a task force, it may just be, I honestly, I don't know whether it will get us anywhere with that. And so myself at this time, I would go with the option of 2, that we give those 6 sleeping units to where they can be used for people who can be monitored and help the best that they can. And we have to say to our people that are looking for places and safe and shelter, is to say, we have them for you, but unfortunately you're going to have to go to a community where they can help you. We'd love to help them here. We'd all love to help our own. But when you look at what this is all about, the 2 pages of what needs to be done to help them, we can't do that here in Lake Cowichan. And that's just my thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor Blacker. Councillor Sandhu?
Well, I appreciate what everybody has said so far, and I'm just wondering if between the mayor and our CAO is sit down and really look at this and say, who would we reach out to, saying we need the service, the services have to go align with the pods. We don't have the resources here, the staffing, the nonprofits or anything to oversee that. We don't have the funds. Could we start there before we give them back and just see if there's any discussion out there that maybe there is funds available out there, and that temporarily, because this is like a year, it's 1 year that these can be in place. So 1 year of costs. So we have to be prepared that we have the resources, but that the funds come from the provincial government. They cannot come from our tax base.
Okay, thank you. Was there anybody else? Councilman McGonigal?
So when I look at that original application by Cowichan Housing, I also look at an opportunity to afford those funds that could have been allocated to sleeping pods to the gap in services that are required within our community. And then directing through community outreach, the residents who are underhoused, perhaps with that counseling and dedicated service, to utilize those pods in another community, whether it be Duncan, which has the wraparound services, the security, the smoke detectors, the food, the water, etc. I think by focusing the funds on the lack of services could afford us the opportunity in the near future to look at implementing those pods. Once that is established and a continuum of funds are afforded for that, whether it be through Island Health, whether it be through BC Housing. Unfortunately, BC Housing's focus has been on the core. All of the funds from BC Housing has been focused in the Cowichan Valley core area, because that is where the majority of the underhoused population resides, whether it's by choice or by migration or transitory avenues. That is where they end up. If we can focus on those funds to go towards that gap in service, then we can move forward in the future with possible housing solutions. And we look at our own zoning. Again, I'm gonna bark at rental only zones, whether it be affordable rental only zones. We've got it in our OCP. Perhaps it's time to implement it. Not like the Chicago projects, but where it's implemented within a neighborhood, in a neighborhood way.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Austin, one more time, then I have some.
Sorry,
comments
just
to add as
a
well.
quick,
It's okay.
just a quickie, and this is a little bit off topic, but we have heard in the past, people say, don't send your people to Duncan, okay? And I know a lot of people from this area have come from Duncan originally, so it's back and forth. But one thing I'm quite concerned about is people don't mind sending the seniors out of this town because we don't have a senior care facility. And we're sending seniors. I've known about 28 in the last 5 years that have gone to Nanaimo, Victoria, Duncan, Ladysmith, Chemainus, out of this community. You know, because of illness and because of not being able to live here. So when politicians and that say, don't send us your, sounds like I'm being an American, send us your sick and your loan. They came here 25 years ago, social services were sending people out here for the cheap rents and services. And that's where some of this started. Some of the problems with marginalized and people that are having problems. And I feel terribly sorry for many of them. But I do think it's something that we do need the funds. We need the funds to be able to help them. They also want to be helped. I don't know if we can force someone into having counseling, a drug addict or an alcoholic. So if you can't force them, and if you can't force them to live in a housing situation where they're not going to get kicked out because they're going to behave themselves, I'm not sure how that's going to work, but that's up to someone else other than myself. So I just wanted to bring that up because it's a really sore spot with me when I hear, don't send your people to Duncan. That's where the services are. One of our people goes to Duncan all the time, goes to Warmland House, and has actually brought other people from Warmland House out here to see all the neat stuff we've got now, which is fine. But I know that for a fact. So just thought I'd mention that, and I'll get off my soapbox now. Thank you.
I'm going to borrow it for a minute myself. So I spoke with an individual today who attended our last meeting, and well, I'm going to say Sergeant Watson called, and she had something on her mind, and she's been carrying it around for over a week now, but just didn't feel comfortable having that conversation with all the folks that were in the room. So I'm trying to choose my words carefully, but to tell you what I heard. Because Sergeant Watson has had experience in the Duncan area since 2005, and I believe that was about the time the Warmland shelter was constructed, and held a fairly substantial position for street patrols and stuff, and watched the street population grow from a couple of handfuls to a couple of hundred in her term on the streets there. And at one time, she gave her officers the task of going out and asking folks who were not in the shelter, but out on the street, where are you from? And 80% of the people that they questioned were not from Duncan. But I'm not from Lake Cowichan either. So just to give you some perspective there, when stuff like that happens, and and I know people have said it to me before, I didn't 100% believe them because but today I felt I heard it from a person who had actually been at the level and actually done the surveys. And yes, it's true. More, be careful what you wish for, because more will come. But on the contrary to that, the comments were made that we have a very caring community that seems to do a really good job looking after their own. And those who are truly our own that are here, they seem to get looked after quite well. We get stuck when we have to supply housing because as Councillor Austin said, it just doesn't work out. Many people have tried and it's never worked. And that person has to take some responsibility, or these people have to take some responsibility themselves, because tonight it's going to be -7. Where's that person going to be? But the bridges have all been burned, and so those are the ones that I have a heart to help one day, or be able to help one day. But once you start that, it's going to be expected every single time. And then it's going to become the place to come, because the lifestyle in Lake Cowichan would probably be more friendly, right? Because we are such a caring community. And before you know it, we may or may not have a situation as what has grown to be in the Duncan area. So that now I truly see that could happen very easily if this subject isn't addressed very carefully. I love the thing I've heard most so far is well, I'm going to touch on the other subject. Yes, the folks in the core were telling us their point of view, and it's not our point of view. It's far outgrowing them. We have 4, they have 204, so and more. And I know we were going to go visit those sites. I didn't feel good about going to visit those sites because I think I could have told myself exactly what I was going to see. And we don't see that here. I don't think we've ever seen what you would have saw there. There are people sitting outside some of those places waiting to get in, but there's no room, or they don't qualify. But they're hoping tomorrow they can get good enough to be able to get in. But it doesn't happen. It's just a vicious circle, right? So there's still 80 unhoused, and some of the other sites are going to be closing down because the village on Trunk Road is going to be the only one left, and they're going to try and transition some folks from a couple of those into the supported housing. But there you go, we don't have any supported housing. So, you know, my fear is to be able to, even if we had one, is to move somebody in there, and next thing you know, there's 3 people in there, and we don't have supervision, and blah blah blah. It just becomes a big nest of trouble, right? So if you put 4 there, I bet you there'll be 12 living in them. So yeah, I'm going to go back to where we have a very caring community. These folks are looked after really good with the resources we have. If we want to do better, we do have to get more. I love the idea of now, I don't want to use the word bargaining, but going back to the folks that have the services and saying, look, we just can't make this move until we fill all these gaps in services at a little bit, or, you know, a substantially higher level. Another conversation I had with Sergeant Watson, part of it was that at one time there was a person that needed a psychiatric evaluation, and but there were in Duncan, you just call the hotline and they're there. In Lake Cowichan, are they going to drive out for one individual? Are they going to station somebody out here for one individual? No. So they ended up having to drive that person in and drop them off at the hospital. So, you know, and we can't, and the thing is, we can't rely on one, it seems we can't rely on one service provider to provide all the services. So you can't just send one full-time person who specializes in all the things that we need to have. So we just need better service from all the existing ones. And that's a great beginning, I believe, for the next step. And I'm convinced of that now. And it wasn't until I listened to Sergeant Watson today, and after I wrote that memo and thought long and hard about it, that that's not the answer for us if we can't get the services. So I'm going to leave it at that. I love the idea of option 2 myself, but I also love the idea of somehow creating a task force, whether it be the community outreach, it becomes part of their conversations, because it seems all the people that are going to be talking about it are there. Maybe they refocus. I don't know, but I'm not going to tell them what to do. But I think we need to find a way to facilitate those conversations in the community without political involvement. I can agree with that as well. Call upon us when you need us for what we do. You want somebody to talk to the Minister of Health? We can do that. Councillor Bomaka.
And, you know, the one thing I have to say is, you know, we all have to feel good about this, our decision, because those 6 pods going somewhere else will still help 6 people. They're not going to take our 6 pods and put them in storage somewhere until we have the resources in place. So if they're better able to help 6 people now, I think that's a good thing. And we should be, you know, comfortable with that.
Yeah. And I so wouldn't think of this as a failed initiative or a failed attempt for us. We reached out and grabbed what was available at the time. We've done our homework. We as political leaders can see all the loopholes that could make it a failure. But I also think this has been a very, at least for me, and I think for others around this table, a very successful way of creating conversation in the community and creating awareness, so that I think we've definitely identified that we need to fill the gaps in service. That's how I feel today. Councilor McGonigal.
Last point, if I may, and I think within that application, the total focus was not on the sleeping pods. Although we were not currently afforded the opportunity to house within those sleeping pods, the portion within that grant for surrounding services should still be afforded to us, should still be a possibility to move forward to fill those gaps as suggested by almost all of us. before moving forward on any housing issue, those complex entities have to be in place. And it can't be on the backs of overworked agencies who are currently above capacity in their own objectives for providing service to other members of the community. Island Health and the Ministry of Health have to step up and realize that small rural communities have similar problems, just at a smaller scale. We don't need the complex services of Victoria or Vancouver, but we need some sort of incremental service moving forward. And it has to be in place. So those funds should still be afforded for that, in my view.
Okay, so there's a fire. So I'm looking at resolution, or the recommended resolution, or possible resolution number 2. The council directs staff to inform Cowichan Housing Association that the town of Lake Cowichan will not be moving forward with the placement of the available 6 sleeping cabins and 1 washroom unit, but will be requesting how would we phrase that? We're
Requesting the funds be allocated to gaps in service for mental health and addiction services.
There you go.
And it'll be recorded, so you can.
It'll be recorded, so staff can turn that into one sentence.
And if I may, I just don't want to lose that opportunity within the funds.
Yeah.
If we turn down one, we shouldn't turn down everything, or we shouldn't be negated that opportunity.
So that has been moved, and now we'll look for a seconder, and then we'll have discussion. Seconded by Councillor Sandhu, and then I saw Mr. Fernandez's hand go up.
No, that's okay. I was just looking for a move and second. We've covered that.
Okay, so is everybody happy with the content of that motion to this point? Perfect. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see a hybrid of something here. If we could get it come together, and that's a good way forward for us. Councillor Bomaka.
Can we put something in there also, so it doesn't look like we're just saying we don't, you can have the pods, but we want the money? Can we put something in there as to the reason, because we do not have the, I don't know how you would word this, the resources, etc. in place? I don't, maybe Joe can find something.
The support
The word.
services? The support services?
Yeah, that we don't have the resources or the responsibilities to accommodate those pods.
So could we add to the resolution and say that, and that the town of Lake Cowichan would like to enter into a conversation? I don't know if we need that, because we're going to enter into a conversation anyways.
Anyways, yeah.
I think the supplemental at the end suggests that there is a gap in service and that we
Yes.
want those funds directed to that.
Yeah.
So aside from naming the agencies, we have implemented that in the motion. Moving forward, we can direct staff to contact the appropriate people
Yeah.
to get those services that we so desperately need. I think that was the intent anyway.
Yeah. So we won't need that wording in the motion. Or could we say, and that staff?
We could have a separate motion. I think it changes the entity
Okay,
of looking for the funds, but
right.
that's just a process question.
Yeah.
At a later date, we can move forward with directing staff, even just directing staff to contact the appropriate entities to get those services. Once the funds are provided or committed to, then we move forward with the implementation process.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Sandhu.
In that conversation that staff will have, would it be good that if they reach out to like community services, because they've kind of been the hub of, just kind of what the needs are of the individuals, and just an idea of what may be required, what services they particularly may need that can be allocated with funds. So I don't know if that's appropriate, but I just thought kind of have a clear understanding is what are the services needed for the individuals that we can bring.
Identifying the gaps.
Thank you. Yes.
Go ahead, Councillor Austin.
One more thing, we talk about funds for these gaps. The funds wouldn't be coming to the town of Lake Cowichan anyway. The funds would be within the ministries, like the Ministry of Housing, the Ministry of Health and all that. So it wouldn't be coming to us to look after these funds. So it's just that we're saying we need this stuff here, and the funds need to be sent here. And when we're at the AVICC or the UBCM this year, hopefully we can bring things like that up. There will be clinics and things like that where we can talk about these things.
Okay. So we have the motion on the floor, and I think everybody's happy leaving it as is. We know there's going to be future conversations. I'll call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? None. The motion's carried. Just as a side note to that, there was no report on that, but council did endorse the application by Social Planning Cowichan for follow-up funding for poverty reduction strategy. Maybe Councillor Austin, when we get to that next meeting, we could see if possible times by Social Planning Cowichan can be used to help facilitate a gap analysis in conjunction with community services. You know, maybe, we don't know. We can't, I won't put words in anybody's mouth, but just so you know that exists, and hopefully the poverty reduction moving on up is successful in the next round of funding, and see where we can do that. But okay, so next step, regroup, leave it to the committee of the whole, and discuss. Well, staff will get the word out to Cowichan Housing Association, I would imagine, on this motion, and then perhaps initiate that initial conversation of the funding part of it. And then we can regroup, and the next committee of the whole, we can talk about service gap analysis. Sound okay? Okay. Any thoughts or ideas on that in the next couple of weeks? Please forward them on, and so that when we get to the conversation, we can be as informed as we can. Or if there's anybody you'd like to be there to help with that conversation, let us know. See what we can do. Okay, good discussion, everybody, and I'm glad that we got to this stage. All right, staff reports. Next, we have the Chief Administrative Officer regarding final phase of the wastewater treatment plant. There's a report there and a recommendation. Mr. Fernandez.
Yes, I'll be submitting an application for grant funding for the final phase of wastewater treatment plant upgrades through the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. And the application is complete except for two outstanding issues. The one you just passed earlier, which was the water conservation resolution, and the other one that's still outstanding is the resolution allowing staff to go forward with the application. So I've provided a report, and I've provided you the recommended resolution that they have recommended. They wanted the format that I presented. So with that, I would be able to complete the application.
Okay, the recommended resolution that staff submit an application for grant funding for the final phase of wastewater treatment plant upgrades through the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Environmental Quality, and that council supports the project and commits to its share of $2,702,738 for the project, as well as cost overruns. That's the recommended resolution. Moved by Councillor Austin, seconded by Councillor Sandhu. Any discussion? Councilor McGonigal.
And now we wait for the lottery. And therein lies the problem. Each and every time we put forward these applications, along with 186 other communities in BC, we're all on pins and needles hoping. I think the important thing is to understand that we're trying to protect a heritage designated river from entities that we can control, but without sufficient funds to do it, unable to fulfill. No different than the mandated 4321 water treatment that Island Health and other provincial entities tried to download onto municipalities. If we had not got that significant grant, I don't know how this tax base would have accommodated that improvement. So therein lies my concern, because we will need to do this sooner than later. If it's not approved at this time, we're going to have to look at options of implementing that regardless.
Thank you. All right. It's been moved and seconded.
Councilor
Councilor
Gomaka.
Gomaka.
With a question. I must be on the bottom of the Hollywood squares. Question is to our CAO. So I know we're always hoping for a grant for this, but what happens, I guess I should ask, are we okay with the Subasit development and the large development going on behind Comey-Aiken? Can our treatment wastewater handle these right now?
At this point, it's a question mark. We're unsure, so we're getting a study done. The First Nations is going to fund that study to see what the capacity of the current treatment plant is. So once we know what that is, then we will be able to proceed or not proceed, depending on the outcome.
And second question is if that does come back, would that help in our application?
Yes, I've used the First Nations as they've actually provided a letter of support, and we are using them to move the application forward.
Okay.
So I think that,
Yeah, that's what I was hoping. Thank you.
and the application does make reference to that.
All right. I know that Mr. Fernandez is working long and hard on this one to make sure it's the best it can be. All right. Seeing no other hands, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next, we have the contract planner regarding the application to the Agricultural Land Commission for non-farm use of the former AB Greenwell School site. Mr. Fernandez.
Yeah, and again, we have completed the application, and they require a council motion. The Agricultural Land Commission requires a council motion for us to proceed with completion of the application. And I think you see the recommendation at the tail end of the report that council will support the non-farm use application, and the rest of it's there.
Mr. Fernandez, I just have one question before I look for a show of hands. So when I thought about this, I thought, well, it's not really in our hands, and we're making this application. Is that the correct route?
Yeah,
it must be, because staff is doing it, but I just.
Yeah, it is the correct route. The town is the only one that can apply, because would be transferred from the school district to the town if this goes through.
Okay.
And that's a requirement under Flynn Road.
Right.
They want us to go through that process.
Okay. All right, Councilman McGonigal.
I'll move it with a comment to follow.
Sure. Have a seconder, please. Councilor Sandu, go ahead.
So,
Councilman McGonigal.
thank you very much. So the application process to have non-farm use is the only option that the town has for acquiring that property. The most important part, in my opinion, of the whole application is for the safety of our community and the safety of our neighborhoods, is a secondary access to the Trails Edge properties that are currently under development. I think within the current infrastructure of Boundary Road, etc., that is imperative to have that secondary access, not just for traffic flow, but for emergency services as well. So in my view, aside from the relocation, because the relocation of Public Works will be a significantly hefty bill on remediation or accommodation. The fire department portion is very important as well, but the major portion for community safety and risk analysis is that secondary access through the non-farm use of that property.
Thank you. Councillor Austin.
No, it was,
Sorry, Omaka.
I know we're interchangeable. Question to the CAO. So we're looking for the transfer, but has staff, I guess it would be our zoning. I'm a little concerned here because I know we need that secondary access. We need it for the safety. But the question I'm having is, what are the plans for the former site where the Public Works is? The costing of to move it, remediation of it, and also the cost of AB Greenwell, because we've sat for 7 years, so obviously it's deteriorated a lot. And when we've gone through the 5-year plan of the budget, where does the money come from for us to even implement the move? And how long of a time frame could we be sitting here for indefinitely?
Yeah, and I think Councilor McGonigal alluded to that. I think the critical part of it, the application, is to get the access. What happens after will be, it'll be down the road, a few years down the road before we can actually do anything with the property there. I've been led to understand that the building as it sits now is salvageable. It can be saved. So, and I think the superintendent can maybe allude to that too.
Mr. Sandhu, do you have any comments?
Disappeared.
Hit the wrong button. Yeah, we went over the building a few times and looked into it. And for Public Works use, the building, where the school part of it, the classrooms were that could be salvaged for most of our vehicles. And the gym area, most likely a shop, and then we'd have to look at possibly an office area. But it has a tin roof on it. It's not leaking. They did a roof, I don't know how many years ago, but the building will need some cleanup, but it can be salvaged. So it wouldn't. We wouldn't be looking at knocking it down. We would re it.
So a follow-up.
Okay, go ahead, Councilor Michael.
Oh, sorry, and a follow-up question regarding the remediation of the other existing site when that happens, if there was any plans. And has it ever, idea ever been entertained of allowing the fire hall to utilize that property as parking and a training facility if we can't remediate it and sell that portion of the property? Just a thought.
Well, if I may, the fire department's looking at moving to this site for their training purposes. So I think it would make more sense to remediate the property at Public Works and sell it to recover the costs, at least.
Okay, Councilor Sandhu, did you have a question?
Thank you. I was on the school board many moons ago when we closed AB Greenwell down due to mold. And I'm just curious, and I also know that there was a creek running underneath one section of the back of the building is what they found was causing the issues inside the building. So has that ever been fixed over the years, or before the school closed, or do we know anything about?
Nothing about the creek, no.
The water problems, no, they've never been addressed, but those things are fixable, by new perimeter drains. And if we know where the water is in the even inside the building, you cut the floor out, you put in drains. Those type of things are done on a regular basis in buildings. So it's a fixable problem.
Okay. Just wasn't a good application at the time of the construction for a school to have drains in classrooms.
Yeah.
Yes, and climate change has definitely played a role in all this as well. So, okay, any more hands, any more questions? Councilor O'Maka, were all yours answered? Okay, good. So I'll call the question. All those in favor of the recommendation? And opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next we can move to bylaws, and we have the Town of Lake Cowichan Sign Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 1068, 2022 may be reconsidered and adopted. Mr. Fernandez.
Yes, this bylaw basically allows signage regulations to be implemented for elections, and so it's here for adoption. And given first, second, and third reading, and it's here for adoption.
Okay, so looking for a mover, Councillor Austin, seconded by Councillor O'Maka. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Move along to the Town of Lake Cowichan Election Bylaw 1069, 2022. Can be reconsidered and adopted as well. Mr. Fernandez.
And this bylaw amends the previous bylaw in its entirety, allowing for mailing, voting, and some changes to some references to legislation. So it's here for adoption.
And that will be moved by Councillor Sandhu, seconded by Councillor McGonigal. Any questions? All those in favor? And opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we can go to the Town of Lake Cowichan Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 1070, 2022 may be read a first and second time. Mr. Fernandez.
Yes, this bylaw amends the official community plan, bylaw 1022, 2019, to institute regulations regarding the ALR designation and the wildfire guidelines. So those two issues are addressed here, and it needs first and second reading.
Okay, mover and a seconder for first and second, please. Councillor Austin, seconded by Councillor O'Maka. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, next we can go to the Town of Lake Cowichan Sanitary Sewer Parcel Tax Bylaw number 1071, 2022. And that may be read first, second, and third time.
And I was hoping the Director of Finance would be helping us with this, but she seems not to be available. Oh, there she is.
Ms. Gill, go ahead.
So the bylaw is here as per budget discussions with an increase of $100 for the sewer to $250. So it's here for first, second, and third reading.
Thank you.
Oh, parcel, right?
Yes, per parcel.
And Councillor Sandhu, were you moving that? And seconded by Councillor Austin. Any further discussion? No, Councillor McGonigal.
I'm not going to get on my soapbox. Everybody knows where I stand on the sewer parcel, looking for incremental, so I will not be supporting this.
Okay. No other hands. I'll call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? The motion is carried. One against. Would you like that recorded officially?
I believe it's video recorded, so all good.
Yeah, pretty much can't hide from that, can we? All right. All right. So now we can move to the Town of Lake Cowichan Water Parcel Tax Bylaw number 1072, 2022. And that may be read a first, second, and third time. Mr. Fernandez.
Yeah, it's the same thing, actually. It's a $100 increase for the water parcel tax from The amount is here, $200 to $300 per parcel. So it's here for first, second, and third reading.
Ms. Gill, any additional comments?
He's just paying attention.
Frozen, I think.
Frozen, it doesn't matter.
All right,
Just
so I'm looking for a mover. Moved by
She's-
Councillor Sandu, second by Councillor Austin. And any discussion on this bylaw? Go ahead, Councillor McGonigal.
I'm controlling the flow. I'm sorry. This one I can support as we have depleted the water reserve for the implementation of our water treatment upgrade. So it does need to be replenished. I will reluctantly support this one, yes.
Yes. Okay, so well, thank you very much for those comments, and we do acknowledge that. I mean, these are difficult decisions to make. We have to understand it all and understand both sides. So with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? You have to work out to do that. That motion passes. Thank you. Okay, now we move along to Mr. Fernandez. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there was a verbal report requested from staff on the building. The progress of the building.
Well, we talked about doing that in new business.
Okay,
So hang on to your horses.
all right.
So we do have some new business A, and that's Couch and Housing Association. And
If I may, Mayor Day, prior
Yeah.
to new business, can we just take a 5-minute break?
Sure.
I've been on Zoom since 9 this morning.
Okay,
I need a bathroom break.
gotcha. Okay, we'll take a break and see you all back here in 5 minutes, which would bring us 7:35.
Joseph. I had a text from Miss Gill. She wasn't ignoring everybody. They had a power surge and she got kicked off.
Okay.
Hi, Ronnie. We're glad
Hi,
you're
I'm-
back. We missed you.
That's bad timing.
That happened to me last week at the watershed board meeting. The screen froze and so I texted somebody and he said, no, it's still running. And we had a power surge here in Lake Cowichan and off.
We did the Coles notes on the water one, so all good.
Okay, I think we got a full crew back now, so we can move on to new business A, and that was a Couch and Housing Association letter, and I believe I heard we all read that earlier, so unless anybody has anything to add to that, Mr. Fernandez.
No, I just wondered if we should include in the agenda a little break each time.
When we get to an hour and a half. Smarty pants. Okay. So we had a couple additions to tonight's agenda. If there's no more discussion on that letter, none. Okay. Let's go with the absence of Councilor Bromaka for the March 8th meeting. Is that correct, Councilor Bromaka? Moved by Councilor McGonigal, seconded by Councilor Austin. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None. Motion carried. Thank you very much. You're free that day, Councilor Bromaka. Okay. Let's go update on the town hall project next.
Well, not a lot to report on, but I can tell you that the seismic upgrades to the current facility is underway now. And I noticed that when the logging trucks go by now, unless it's my imagination, I don't seem to rattle yet.
Well, worth the price, worth every penny.
So
that is a
that's
good
enough.
sign.
It's a good sign, yeah.
Yeah.
The building doesn't shake.
Yeah, and I have noticed that the crew is gradually growing every time I go by. So
you probably know more about what's happening because you poked your nose in that.
I don't talk and I don't ask questions.
So that's the update.
Okay, thank you for that. And then, and please help me if I missed anything. I was scribbling fast. Meeting format going forward was another one of the items. So if you haven't been to the town hall or office lately, you'll notice that the room has been cut in half, and the part formerly known as the kitchen is now an empty space with holes in the floor and all that kind of stuff. So so we don't have an option of going there, and Mr. Fernandez suggested that we do have the option of going to the fire hall. I guess the question is, number one, do we feel that it's time to do that? Number two, the question is there enough bandwidth there to do that? So, and then some of the questions that were talked about, maybe to pose to you to get us to think is do we want to wait another month? Do we want to do a hybrid where we don't all go to the same spot if there's not enough internet? That we just have a couple members of council and a staff member at the fire hall and allow the public to come and attend in person? I mean, I don't know. Councilman McGonigal knows more about what the hybrid model might look like at the CVRD maybe. Does it work? Does it not work? Is it best to stay right where we're at for one more month or 2 more months? So I'm just going to stop talking and allow for comments now. Councilman McGonigal.
I think the format at the regional district does work, but they do have considerably more bandwidth options than we do. I think with that concern, wherever we move, whether it be the fire hall or the log building where the visitors' information resides, we would have a bandwidth issue. That was one of the considerations implementing online meetings within our current facility, was the lack of bandwidth. Had we all been there with 2 devices and trying to transmit. I may suggest, if I might, that we continue under this format for another month and reassess after the end of March on availability of implementing a hybrid system at that time.
Okay. Tend to agree with that suggestion myself. Councillor Austin, you were nodding. Councillor Omaka. Councillor Sandu. Councillor Omaka, were you going to say something?
I was just going to ask when our, I don't know what it was called, the order that was in place for us to be able to have Zoom meetings, is that now?
That's expired.
It's expired. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
And therefore, do we need a resolution to go another month, Mr. Fernandez?
Yeah, well, you don't really need it, other than give notice. That's all you have to do. Just state this is what you're gonna do. I don't think you need a motion, but you can do it by motion if you so desire.
Makes it clean and tidy.
Yeah.
Okay, looking for a motion from the floor to continue meeting virtually up until.
Why not do
Go ahead.
2 months and then you reassess it in the middle of April or so.
Okay. The motion recommendation could read motion to continue meeting virtually up until April 30th.
And then you can predetermine, reassess it.
And
That's great.
Councillor Sandu, are you moving that or speaking?
I'll move it, and just I wanted to speak on it. So
Get a seconder, please. Councillor Bomaka, go ahead, Councillor Sandu.
I'm just wondering, I mean, at some point we are going to get back to meeting in person. And I just wonder if we pick a location, say this is where we want to meet, that we make sure that we've got the recording bandwidth, whatever, available at the fire hall. So we don't all need to be on our iPads like this, but could we not somehow have it set up? Because we're going to be doing this right through to October, to the election. We're not going to be in the town office. If we could look at the fire hall, is there any upgrades they need for their Wi-Fi, whatnot, so that we can actually hold a meeting there?
They've got the same bandwidth as we do.
Okay, so could we look to getting a cost to improve it or whatnot, just in the time we've got, the 2 months we've got now?
We could do that.
Okay, let's Councilman McGonigal, go ahead.
And could that be utilized through the COVID funds?
We'll look into that, yes.
Okay. So we'll call the question on this motion. Okay, go ahead, Councilor Bomaka. Then we'll call the question.
Just a question to the CAO. So if the fire department has the same bandwidth that we have in the town right now, and if we're looking at possibly upgrading the fire department, are we also going to upgrade the town hall?
We will.
Okay.
We might as well do it at the same time, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll get the motion on dealt with here, and all those in favor? Opposed? None. Motion carried. Now I guess direction to staff to move forward in investigating the options to increase the bandwidth at the fire hall, as well as possible other locations, and come back with a recommendation.
Well, it could be something we can have, the staff can handle though.
You can handle it. Okay. Okay. Cool. There we go. I believe that was all the additional new business, was it not? Thank you. You want to leave anything off?
But one more.
Oh, Councillor Bomaka.
I think Councillor Austin was going to
Oh,
about the show of hearts.
Oh, yeah.
after the mayor's report, but maybe we'll get her to do it now. Slide her in there now, Karen.
Would you like me to
That's
do
awesome.
it now?
Yeah.
Okay. This is it'll be backwards. It doesn't show. Anyway, the Show of Hearts is from the Thursday, February 24th to the 26th. The actual show is on the 26th on Global Television from 1 to 5:30. And because this was a major thing that our service that our Nicole Stock did with our original Penny Girl, I support it every year, and I'm hoping other people in the community will do that as well. It's very important. It's for the Children's Hospital. It helps a lot of children, and it's an excellent thing and great. Gosh, they got David Foster as usual. He's always on there, but lots of different people all during the whole time. So again, it's this coming weekend.
And thank you very much. And Councilor McGonigal, could I just call upon you for just a moment to maybe just say a few words about the Kraken?
Well, thank you very much. The Lake Cowichan Kraken, your local Junior B hockey team, finalized their season yesterday with a game against Campbell River. Unfortunately, with a loss, they did not make the playoffs, but they did have a very successful last two games in attendance, over 400 people for Family Fun Night, which was an awesome crowd, and over 300 people on the final home game. Looking forward to next year, moving forward, continuing with a competitive on-ice program, but also more community-based opportunities for the team to go out and help within community events. Also, Harbs Baines, who is an owner and the manager of the Cowichan Kraken, was named the VIJHL Executive of the Year. I'm probably stepping on his thunder, but I will do that now. They were very competitive right to the last game, and it came down to the last game. And I want to thank all the volunteers and all the sponsors, all the contributors, yourself, Mayor Day, for your role as the announcer, game day announcer, and everyone who was involved with the Kraken for a very successful inaugural season. Look forward to bigger and better things coming next year.
Thank you very much. And I didn't work that into the mayor's report, but so that's why I wanted you to do that, as I know you're a fan. And just my observations throughout the season was the arrival of this team has had an impact in the community in a lot of subtle ways, and it's cool to watch. Not everybody would notice, but it has had both an economic development wise and just community building wise. I've seen changes and good things happening. From a play-by-play announcer perspective, not a job that I applied for. I just wanted to shout out and play music, but it was a great experience. And at first I was very awkward about it, but when I found out that the people that were watching on hockey TV were the parents and relatives of these children from all the way as far away as Ontario, then I became very attached to that chore or that duty. And it was really heartwarming to have parents come up and say that they appreciated being able to, feel like they were right there watching their son play or brother or whatever. So it was kind of cool. And sorry the season's over, but they'll be back next year.
Oh, good.
All right. So now I'll go to the mayor's report. The month of February has been one largely centered around budget discussions for many local governments, including the town of Lake Cowichan. As discussions wind down, the next step will be to present the 5-year financial plan bylaw and the relevant parcel tax bylaws, which we have done this evening, to Mayor and Council for final discussion and potential adoption at upcoming meetings of Council. For interested members of the public, I would encourage you to watch the upcoming agendas on the Town of Lake Cowichan website and follow the process. I would like to now take a moment to acknowledge where we are at with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic. As the provincial government starts to lift many of the restrictions, it's time to cast our minds to what the next few months will look like in and around our community. Restaurants and other businesses will now move to full occupancy, which I'm sure will allow more people to go back to work and those businesses to thrive again. Community events will slowly start to come back as we all become more comfortable being together again and reuniting the feeling of connection in our community. Volunteer organizations will again start to meet in person and reunite the relationships that build strong communities. I'm sure we have all learned a lot from the past 2 years as we have learned to slow the spread of the COVID virus. Wearing masks, washing hands, getting vaccinated, and limiting gatherings were all new to us as a society. And we all struggled to do what we felt we needed to do to keep ourselves, our families, and our medical institutions safe. There are signs that we are moving towards the endemic stage, but we are not quite there. My hope is that we continue to work together towards the finish line and remain kind to each other as we have throughout the past 2 years of the pandemic. And I mean those comments specifically to our small town. Councillor Austin said, I bet you wish you were glad you're not the mayor of Ottawa. And I didn't answer because I didn't even know, can't even imagine that going on. But we managed to get through this. We know there's differences of opinion in the community, but we've all managed to respect each other and carry on towards the finish line.
Yeah.
Lastly, I would like to acknowledge a special event coming up in the town. On March 20th, 2022, there will be the Crystal Mail Memorial Cancer Walk. All funds raised through this event will help towards the revitalization of the Duck Pond Playground.
Oh,
Registration is at the Duck Pond Park and begins at 9:30 a.m. on the day of the walk, which starts at 11 a.m. The walk is dedicated to all those who have lost and those who have battled and survived cancer. Thank you to Crystal and Dustin Mayo for planning this walk, which I know Crystal and Dustin did before Crystal's passing. And to all those who will be organizing what I am sure will be an amazing occasion. So thank you. Okay, no notices of motion. And that takes us to question period. Councilman Gonwell, you couldn't have hung on. Okay. All right, so that's where we'll pause for 3 minutes, folks, and allow the members of the public to call in to 250-749-6681, and then it's extension 102 if you wish to ask a question of an item on this agenda, or you can email your questions now or at any time to general@lakecowichan.ca, where the questions will be answered as well. So once again, the phone number for live questioning right now is 250-749-6681, extension 102. We will pause for 3 minutes. See you at 7:54. right, 7:54 it is. And we're all back, so thank you very much. Mr. Fernandez, anything as far as questions tonight?
No questions, but I had a call asking, just trying to verify if I did indeed answer my calls. So I proved that I do answer forward.
All right, that's good. It wasn't your wife, was it?
No.
All right, well, there you have it for those watching out there tonight in local government land. Yeah, we answer the phones. All right, thank you very much, and thank you to the person who called in and double checked on that for us. So
She was actually singing. She was actually singing the praises of council.
Oh,
I'll just leave it at that.
okay, good. Okay, so there is no in camera, and that brings us to number 14, adjournment. Moved by Councillor O'Maka, second by Councillor Austin. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, staff. Great dialogue tonight, and yeah, good meeting.
Thank you.
Good
And
meeting.
we'll
Good night.
talk to you all very soon somewhere.
Good night.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Leave the meeting.